All right, and we're back. Matt, how's it going over there in cold Canada?
It's not that cold today. I mean, it was a little bit colder than last week, but it's pretty nice. We get up to about 16 degrees Celsius. So what is that, 50,
No, that's
55-ish?
that's like low 60s. Right
Yeah,
on. Well, that's
yeah.
pretty good. So there's a lot in our tech news to talk about. First of all, did you see that black hole picture?
Yeah, it was really neat. And I even read a little bit about the woman who made it possible. And so it was just neat to see somebody like that being recognized.
Well, I have a lot of controversial things to say about it that I feel
Do
like,
it.
yeah, nobody's talking about this on Reddit or anywhere.
Really?
Is that people kept saying picture. And to me, it's an image that was interpolated with data. You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
They didn't take a camera and take a picture of this.
No,
It's
it's not a picture. It's data layered upon itself to say this is what it would look
look
like.
like if you
Yeah,
were close by. And it's literally rendered. So it's like taking a rendering. It's like, the dinosaur from Jurassic Park was rendered. We didn't take a picture of it. I don't see how everyone's getting away
uh,
with that. Anyway, the other thing that bothered me about it was all of the press she was getting. I
yeah,
mean, she only wrote a few hundred lines of code on it, and I realized she was part of the team,
yeah.
but there was a
What about
whole
the
team
rest
out
of the
there,
team?
a
Yeah,
huge team, and they were actually really, really nice. I read an interview with one of the other guys that was on the team that we
yeah,
don't know his name because he's not a girl, and he
yeah.
just basically said, yeah, she was a big part of it and just kind of stepped in the background, but I feel like no one's talking about what I'm saying. Number one, it's not a picture, and number two, it wasn't just her doing it. So,
Well,
bam, that's what I have to say.
let's talk about it really quick
Yeah.
then. I'll just do a quick counterpoint on, I mean, I'll agree it's not a picture, but I think the importance of it as far as science goes, now we have a rendering. I'll give you that one, but it is kind of proof positive that black holes exist more than just theoretical calculations. And we have had some proof positive, but this is more of seeing is believing kind of a concept that, hey, look, we've been able to render it based on actual data points that we have. So, I'd say that's actually a big win. And, even though theoretically we've known about them for quite a while, now we can say we can render it based on actual scientific data.
Yeah, no, good points. It is exciting. I just think people got a little carried away with it.
You know what's interesting though? Reading the comments, and I love doing that. I always read comments
Don't
because
do it. Don't even read our comments.
because I
People
love
are
to
crazy.
see the crazies.
Yeah.
But
Just kidding. Please comment. We like your
yeah,
comment. We actually
uh,
like to write back to your comments.
especially if you're crazy, we like
Yeah.
that too.
We like crazy comments.
So it was a lot of the comments on CBC were like, "Who cares? This doesn't mean anything." I mean, the problem with CBC comments is they're mostly political, and we've had political scandal federally. We've got elections going on in Alberta, the province, and so all of a sudden this article comes up about, hey, we have a picture of a black hole, and people are like, "Wah, who cares?" And I was like, well, then don't click on the link, man. Like,
Click on the other boring.
yeah.
Man, Canadian politics are so boring to me. I remember growing up, I used to deliver papers with you, and I'd try to read. As soon as I read Conservative Party, I just went right to sleep. I mean, but anyway, you're voting today, right?
I voted.
Oh,
So
okay.
now I have a right to complain no matter what the election results are.
All right, exciting. We'll have to find out next week how it went.
Yeah.
The other thing that's kind of big in the news that I just wanted to bring up was Julian Assange.
Yes.
He was taken out of the embassy in London, and
Hmm.
that was kind of crazy. It sounded crazy to me. Did you hear that he was putting like smearing feces on the wall and doing all
Oh,
kinds of crazy? You didn't hear that?
no. Do you
So,
think it's real or do you think it's the
yeah.
slander to say this guy belongs behind bars?
Well, I was reading it on, I believe, CNN. I mean, I can link
Yeah.
to the article if you really want to. I just thought it was common knowledge. So apparently he had a cat while he was there that he
Yeah.
never cleaned up after, and he was just a really bad person.
Tenant?
Tenant, yes, that's what I was looking for.
Was he paying rent? Probably not. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, he had a very polished look to him back when, WikiLeaks first came out. But in the end, Dan, he's just a hacker that used to live in his mom's basement, and now
Right.
he lived in an embassy with a cat. So smearing feces is weird, but like the pictures of him with his beard and whatever, right? Like that's a hacker. That's a guy who's made his career, sitting at a computer, probably without pants on. And so it doesn't surprise me that he looked like that.
So I want to bring up a few things here.
Yes.
Hopefully he was wearing pants the whole time, but literally being locked in an embassy is kind of like being in jail if you think about it,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And
and
I
he
think
chose to be
that's well, and if you're in jail, at least you get to go and do PE time where you run around, lift weights, you're served free
no
hot
internet
meals.
access.
That's right. And so
That's
that's the big difference. And that's
yeah.
the funny thing. And that poses the question to you, Matt. If you had to choose between three hot meals, gym time, sunshine, or internet access, which would you choose?
Our viewers are like, I don't get that reference, but I think it's the second week in a row we've referenced.
Well, neither did he. Remember when I brought it up with him and he had no idea?
Yeah, Jeff
Oh.
Goldblum, listeners, we're talking about Jeff Goldblum and his appearances on Saturday Night Live. So, yeah, what were we talking about?
I was wondering if you would rather have internet access or three hot meals and exercise.
I would rather have three hot meals and exercise. But if you ask me, would I rather be in jail or in an Ecuadorian um,
Embassy in London with internet access?
I would probably take the embassy because jail's downright scary, Dan. If you hear the stories about jail, you don't want to go there. Hardened criminals come out of there and they're like, I'm not going back. No
Yeah,
way.
that's a good point.
I will take the embassy any day with internet access and a government that kind of loved me for a while, but they turned on him. It sounded like, from what I read, is he started hacking the Ecuadorian government's computers, right? Like, I mean, he's a hacker, that's what he does, but like they quickly turned on him when he's like, I expose governments and you're a government, and giving you three hot meals and hot showers and letting your cat bubbles hang out, and right, like not a very gracious host,
Oh
or I
man.
should say. Yeah.
Well, I found the articles about the feces on the wall. So Interior Minister Maria Paula Romo told reporters Thursday that the previous administration had allowed Assange to get away with behavior like putting feces on the wall of the embassies and other behaviors of that nature. So she added that the country laid out about $400,000 in medical, food, and laundry and legal expenses for Assange. So it sounds like he was a terrible tenant. And
Yes.
yes, that was true about the feces smear. So there you go.
Well,
That's from theroot.com.
it kind of begs the question, like he was wanted in Denmark, I think it was Denmark or maybe Sweden, for sexual assault and rape. Like it kind of sounds like maybe that's legit. I know the charges were dropped, but I think they were dropped because they couldn't extradite him and time ran out. So I don't know. I mean, are we shocked that he's creepy? I'm not. And then on the other hand, you could always be a conspiracy theorist and say, oh, they're just trying to slur his image so that the United States can finally extradite him and lock him away forever, like they've always wanted to do. And
Along with Meng
stop.
Wanzhou, right?
Along with Meng Wanzhou, yeah.
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
a crazy time. I hope we don't get extradited. Okay, so
You're
enough
already
about
there.
that. I see you have an article here about Disney Plus video streaming. We talked about the rumors of it last week, so the details came out.
Yeah, details came out. This is pretty exciting news for this week. And as you mentioned, we knew it was coming. So here's some deets. November 12th, 2019, it's going to show up in the United States. I couldn't find anything on Canada. So I'm assuming it'll probably come here. But you know what? There's a lot of services we don't have here in Canada that you've
You
had.
don't have Hulu, right?
I don't, but I did a quick search and it sounds like maybe it's here, but in a much smaller form, kind of like when Netflix first showed up. So I'm gonna have to double check that. We do have Amazon Prime. I actually have it. That's kind of fun. But anyways, Disney Plus price. This is, I think, the big part of the story. It's only $6.99 a month. Or if you subscribe for a whole year, you can get it for $69.99. So $70 for a whole year. That's shocking. And it's very similar to prices that we saw when Netflix first came out. So I think that's kind of the strategy they're going with. They say it's deeply discounted compared to Netflix because of the volume of movies and TV shows that they have. So you compare the volume to Netflix and it's not even close. And so maybe they're saying, look, we're just starting out, we're fledgling, and this is where Netflix used to be priced at when they were more this size. But I think it's also extremely strategic. Did you know that Netflix's stock dropped by 5
Yes.
within like hours of the announcement of Disney Plus?
Well, and it also dropped today in aftermarket trading. Robinhood sent me a little message. Yeah, so it's been really taking a beating left and right. I mean, they raised their prices this month. I just got an
Yes.
email that said it's going to be like $2 more a month, which is frustrating.
Yeah, so that's kind of the big bomb is how cheap Disney's coming out. But I honestly could not say they are equals, right? Like you can't say Disney Plus is going toe to toe with Netflix. It's just not the same. Netflix is a giant, a gargantuan. It's massive, it's huge, and it's had the head start and it's creating its own content. And in my opinion, I think it's hitting it out of the ballpark when it comes to its own content. I think it's doing a
Yeah.
great job. Yeah.
What's the show called with those kids that run around like Stephen King's It, but instead it's the
Stranger
Upside
Things.
Down?
Yeah.
What's that?
Stranger
Yes,
Things.
Stranger Things is a good one.
Great.
I like The OA is pretty good. Have you seen the second season?
Oh yeah, I finished the second season. In fact, I just binge watched, and I'm not recommending it. It's not like go out and watch it right now. But it's called Black Summer, and it's a new zombie show.
Oh yes, that's on my list. Yeah, I heard it's like Train to Busan, right? Is it Korean or is it just regular?
It's American, and I think it takes place outside of Los Angeles.
Awesome.
Yeah, but it really doesn't do much character development, and we don't need to turn this podcast into like reviews of TV shows, but it's really just full of zombie chase scenes. So the characters you don't get into detail. One of the main characters, you actually don't learn his name until the very last episode.
Oh, cool.
So I'm not gonna spoil it even if I said his name, you wouldn't even know it until the very last episode. He's like, "My name is."
Julian Assange. Didn't
Julian
didn't you get the hint with me smearing the feces? Well, that's
chased by
cool. Okay. Well, here's the big question for you, Matt. Are you gonna subscribe to Disney Plus for your kids?
No.
No,
No.
I'm not subscribing either.
I'm not going to because, first of all, my kids are hitting teenagehood. I mean, my two older ones are already teenagers, and my youngest is 11. Do they want to watch these shows? Like, let's just get into the programming. It sounds awesome. Yeah, I want to watch these shows. So, first of all, you got Marvel. So, just about everything you've seen in the Marvel universe, from movies that have come out to some of the Netflix shows like Daredevil and Luke Cage, Jessica Jones. All these really cool shows. Most likely, those Netflix ones are going to show up. All the movies for sure are going to be on there. But now they've got new ones. So apparently, there's a show that's going to be based on Loki. So that'll be interesting to watch. Another one on Hawkeye. There's one called What If, which takes place in like alternate universes. So what if Captain America ended out being the romantic one that he was in love with? What if she became Captain America instead of him? Right. So if you
Sounds
remember,
like another dimension, like the OA, right? What a ripoff! I'm just kidding.
That's kind of what they're doing, and
Yeah.
apparently it's quite a successful string of comics that Marvel has put out. Is this What If universe? And then they have all the Star Wars stuff that's coming out. So all the Star Wars movies, and you got the TV shows, like you got Clone Wars, Rebels, And now they're coming out with some live action Star Wars, which has been rumored for years, but they finally announced them. So the one that I'm very interested in watching is called The Mandalorian, and it's basically like a space gunslinger, and it takes place after Return of the Jedi, but before the rise of what are they called again? Anyways, the First Order, I think, is what they are, and it's got Carl Weathers in it. Do you know who Carl Weathers is? So he was in Rocky, so he was Rocky's opponent earlier,
Oh,
and then he becomes Rocky's buddy, and he showed up on Arrested Development and then as himself, and
yes, yes.
totally makes I think Carl Weathers is awesome. I can't wait to see what Carl Weathers is going to do, and really he's probably one of the least known of the actors. Like, it's really star-studded.
Is that the Arrested Development episode with Martin Short where he's that really strong guy that gets people to hoist him up?
I think so. Yeah, and Carl Weathers is there.
Hoist me, Buster.
Martin Short's awesome. So other things that are coming on, they've announced Monsters at Work. So it takes place right after Monsters Inc. And here's another cool thing: every Simpsons episode.
That's why I would get it. All the other things you said don't interest me at all. The Simpsons for sure. I watched the Cat Burglar episode last night and loved it.
Really?
Yeah.
How did you watch it? Was it just on TV or?
It was on YouTube. Yeah, they split it up into 5 different things. Somebody pirated it,
Someone's
but
pirated it. You got to go click, click, click.
yeah.
So other things that are going to be on there, traditional Disney. They're saying over 500 films, 7,000 episodes of Disney TV. So you're going to get all your classic Mickey Mouses, Donald Ducks, Goofies, those
Escape
types of
to
things.
Witch Mountain.
Yeah, hey,
I mean, you could just watch stuff all day.
right? Plus all the classics that we think of: Cinderella, Lion King, all of that. So now here's something that's also interesting. Disney now owns Hulu, because as the major owner of Hulu with their acquisition of Fox. And so a big question came up: what's going to happen? Are they going to pull all their Disney content from Hulu? And the answer is no. It sounds like the strategy they're going to go with is Disney Plus is going to be more family orientated and Disney stamped, whereas Hulu's going to be more risque adult orientated. So you're probably going to get the shows that were on Netflix that were a little more edgy, like Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Nick Cage, and all those. If they do show up somewhere, they'll probably show up there. The one reason why they may not is because they were made with Netflix, and I'm not really sure about licensing and how that's going to work. So interesting things. Oh, also devices. How are you going to be able to watch Disney Plus? They only announced 2 things. They said Roku and the PlayStation 4.
Okay.
Now, I'm sure there's going to be apps that will be approved. So you'll be able to watch on Apple TV and Android and tablets and probably Amazon Fire. And apparently they even showed screenshots from a Nintendo Switch.
Cool.
So it looks like you'll be able to get it on most anything that can stream. So that's good.
But will you be able to get it from the PlayStation 5? Okay, tell us about this PlayStation 5 that was just announced.
Yeah, and it wasn't an official announcing. So this was an interview by Mark Cerny, and he was interviewed by Wired. And this just landed today. So Mark Cerny is the lead architect for the PlayStation 4, and I'm assuming he's also the lead architect for the PS5. And what happened was they were just sort of asking him questions. So one of the first questions that I read on multiple sites, which kind of surprised me why they were so interested in it: will it be called the PlayStation 5? He said, I can neither confirm nor deny. I don't know why that's crazy, but maybe they're going to rebrand the PlayStation. And then they said, will it be released in 2019? Now, Sony usually does a PlayStation event sometime in June. And it sounds like he said, we're not doing that. And it's most likely because they won't be able to do a 2019 release. In the past, they've usually aimed for, say, like a Christmas season to release a new console. So it's like the new thing that everybody has to get. And my guess is they're not ready for 2019. So we're assuming, but he didn't confirm anything, probably a 2020 reveal and then a late 2020 release.
That makes sense to me because some of these DATs you have here are insane.
Yeah, I mean, so here's what's neat. Whenever a new console comes out, whether it's a PlayStation or an Xbox, those are the two that usually have bleeding edge technology. And so their actual cost to build them, they lose money. So Sony will lose money on every PlayStation 5 that it releases in the beginning part of the product cycle. And it's always been that way. And it's because they'll have bleeding edge technology. But then as time goes on, they'll continue to create more PlayStation 5s, and those chips and components will become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to the point where they're actually making margins. And then near the end of the product cycle, really good margins. So, I mean, they know how they're going to swing this, but let's get into some of the stats because this
Yeah.
is pretty cool.
So I was gonna say the first thing that really surprised me was ray tracing.
Yeah.
That's crazy because the cheapest video card you can buy right now that does ray tracing is like $600 just for the video card.
Yeah. So here's the video card. They're saying the GPU will be based on. So it doesn't mean it's necessarily the same. It's based on, probably specifically made for the PlayStation 5, on AMD's Radeon Navi. So it will perform ray tracing. They are actually doing it right now. And ray tracing, according to the articles I've read, you probably know this way better than I do, but it's used for high quality graphics. And according to this article, is the PlayStation 5 will be capable of 8K rendering. So using the ray tracing and 8K, Dan, 8K, like there's barely 8K televisions out here. I don't even own a 4K one. Do you own a 4K TV?
I don't even have one gun, let alone many guns to necessitate a rack.
I don't know.
No, I'm still 1080p. Here's the thing about 8K though. If you think about the product cycle of the PlayStation 4, it's been out for a long time. And when it first came out, people's TVs were not as good as they are today. And so even though a lot of us don't have 8K right now, next time we buy a TV, we'll probably get an 8K TV at Thanksgiving for Black Friday, right?
Yeah, that's a
Um,
good point.
just because it's kind of the newer thing. Also, I know that I'm kind of in the market for a TV that's bigger than 70 inches because they're so thin now. I
Yeah.
mean, 8K really, you're not going to notice a big difference unless it's 70, 75 inches. And that's what I want to get next because they're under $1,000 now. So for sure, I think that's a great thing.
Well, let's run down this rabbit hole just for a little bit because I've been looking at TVs. I'm not really in the market. I got a 58-inch plasma that's over 10 years old and it weighs as much as a baby elephant. I don't really, I'm not interested in taking it off my wall. But if I were, I've been looking at some of these TVs, walking around Costco and Best Buy, and you're right, those OLED TVs are almost paper thin. But they have these big, huge, chunky bases that I'm sure is where all the components are, right? Like the actual screen is quite small, thin, and doesn't produce a lot of heat. But then down where the components are is quite chunky. So you put it up on your wall. It's not like you're taking a picture and putting it up on your wall and it's the thickness of a frame, a picture frame. It's actually because of the chunky components on the bottom. Most of these designs will come out like an inch or two from the wall because of that chunky part when you mount it. And you're mounting the chunky part because that's where the weight is.
But
So
compared to your OLED, or compared to your plasma TV that you have right now, it's going to be like half the size.
easy.
Honestly, it's going to make your room feel so much
Yeah.
bigger, and you'll have so many cool options with it. I mean, all the TVs you get right now are going to have Roku built in, or they're going to have their own
Or
Samsung,
Android. A
yeah,
lot of
Android
them have
stuff on
Android
it.
TV, or Chromecast.
And
So
yeah, and as we talked about in our previous episodes, now you can even do iTunes stuff on it, so that's awesome.
yeah, I think most of these TVs are going to come with multiple options. They'll probably have Amazon Fire. If you buy them from Amazon, guaranteed they'll have Amazon Fire built in. And just about everything I saw at Costco the other day had Android TV built in. So I don't know if they have a contract with Google because I've been surprised at the amount of Google devices. So like the home minis, and tablets, Chromebooks. I mean, it seems like they have some kind of contract with Costco. So, yeah, I think you're going to have lots of different options. All the announcements came out where Apple TV, or at least apps for iTunes, are going to be on these TVs. Um, It is cool. I'm actually looking forward to buying a TV again. Once I had my plasma, and I'm like, it's 1080p, and it's been pretty good. Maybe I sound like an old man when I say that, but I'm like, I
Generation X.
I don't need a new TV. Whereas remember back in the day, it's like, oh man, did you see it before we had flat panel TVs? It was just TVs that didn't have curved
Yes.
cathode array screens. So it
Yes.
was like, wow, your screen is flat?
Yes.
That was the flat TV. And then they had the widescreen TVs that were still heavy in the size of a baby elephant. And then they had the rear projection TVs, and you're like, that's amazing. And it was like terrible graphics. And so it was always like, I need the latest and greatest TV specs. But I haven't had a desire to go to 4K because I really haven't had many options to stream 4K.
But if you had a 75-inch TV that was nice and thin up on your wall, that would be very enticing to get a PlayStation 5 and do all the streaming.
I have a PS4 Pro, and that's actually capable of 4K. And as you mentioned, the PlayStation 4 has been out for a while, and it wasn't capable of 4K till the PS4 Pro. So interesting. That's where they're going. So let's jump back into this PlayStation 5. I'll just go through a few more of these bullet points, and we can move on. So it's going to come with a solid state drive. And I think that's kind of a no-brainer. Like, why are we still using magnetic drives anyways? Like, really, these solid state drives are way faster to boot up, and they're saying that it's going to shrink lengthy load times, have much faster online playing. And interestingly, the prototype, the working prototype, they were showing Marvel Spider-Man.
Cool.
And apparently there's this part of Marvel Spider-Man, I haven't played it, where you do this fast travel through New York City on a subway. And I'm assuming it's still rendering the entire city while you're sitting on this subway. And I guess the PS4 Pro does that rendering in 15 seconds. Well, this one in the PS5 working prototype can do it in 0.8 seconds.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, huge capability improvements. And the CPU is going to be based on the third generation AMD Ryzen processor. So lots of really neat things coming out here. I'm looking forward to it. I am telling you though, like, I'm not a heavy gamer, but I'm leaning more towards PC gaming.
Yeah,
Just
no, for
just
sure.
because like these product cycles, your current console starts feeling old, whereas with a tower you can replace CPUs, GPUs, throw in more RAM, get a better hard drive, and you can keep up with technology a lot faster. So that's kind of where I'm leaning towards, but we'll see.
Well, there's a new Xbox announcement as well.
Yeah.
It's called the Xbox One S All Digital, and it's actually going to be cheaper because they're getting rid of the physical disc. And we talked a little bit about this before, but we actually have an announcement date. It's coming out May 7th, and it's going to be $258 in Germany on the 7th of May. So that's a really good price cut. But what I wanted to talk about here is this could actually be the end of Blu-ray and physical discs altogether.
Yeah.
Because when you think of Blu-ray, you typically think of kids buying games at a store, bringing them home. I mean, it's rare to see people rent a movie in Blu-ray. It
Oh yeah.
happens every once in a while, but you don't hear about people going to Future Shop or Best Buy to get a Blu-ray movie to go watch at home, because now you can stream in 4K on Netflix. And I just think that now that gaming is now getting rid of their discs, this is the nail in the coffin for Blu-ray, in my opinion.
Interesting. So I remember when Blu-ray came out and it was competing with like HD DVD. I think that was what it was called. And before that it was the VHS versus Betamax. And remember the laser discs when we were kids? I remember
Going over to the Patey's house and watching The Fugitive, the train scene on that. That was crazy, 1993 or whenever that was.
So we may see, this might be the end when everything goes cloud-based and digital. Technology will still continue to go, and we're gonna be getting onto smaller and smaller hard drives and capabilities that way. But I think for the end user, it's really gonna get to streaming. I'm amazed at the streaming capabilities that are already coming out. So on the Shield TV, we talked a little bit about it with GeForce Now, and we talked about how Android's going to have a subscription, and Apple just came out with a subscription.
Well, and Google Stadia, right? That's the thing I'm the
Yes.
most excited about, is freaking playing games on YouTube without needing the tower at all.
And they're saying 8K,
Yeah,
right? Like,
that's right.
was
Yeah.
it 8K or 4K? We'll have
Definitely 4K. Definitely
for sure
4K.
4K. And that's
Yeah, that's
crazy.
crazy.
So
Um,
yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Like, why even buy the next PlayStation 5?
in fact, don't buy the PlayStation 5. Don't buy this Xbox One S all digital. Just do Google Stadia in the fall when it comes
Yeah,
out.
but pricing. The biggest problem I have as far as when it comes to cost, and I'm cheap, right? Like I'm a cheap person, and I will admit that when you start subscribing to services, that's how your expenses can start to snowball.
Yes.
So, like we were just talking about subscribing to
Disney Plus,
Netflix and now Disney Plus and
Hulu,
Hulu and Amazon Prime and HBO Now and
and CBS All Access.
yes, you can watch your Star Trek. And so all of that, it's just, oh, it's just another $7. Oh, it's just another
And
$14.
then
Oh,
you've got Spotify and Apple Music and
and now you're paying way
Microsoft Office and
more than you ever did for your cable.
yes,
Way more, and perhaps, and that's the thing. Like, will you end up paying more for these streaming services than you would have for a PlayStation 5 and owning
absolutely.
your Blu-ray games?
And now, before we end the podcast, there's another company that's getting into your pocket in
Yeah.
another sneaky way, and it's Tesla.
Yes.
So, we've talked about Tesla before on this podcast, and I'm excited about the Model 3 because it's $35,000, which is actually kind of affordable for a fancy car like that. Here's the thing, though. This week, they pulled that off of their website. Now, you can still buy the $35,000 model, but you have to call in or you have to go into one of those shops that they were supposedly going to close to make this possible. Remember that?
Mm.
So they're changing up their retail strategy once again. And here's the problem. They say that they're doing this to make it better for people. They're saying that the cheapest Model 3 ordered online will now include Tesla's autopilot, driver assistance system, and a longer battery range. And these features increase it up to 39,500, so about 40 grand. And so they said simplifying these choices have actually made it cheaper and more affordable for the user because before, with all of these same features, it was $40,500. So you're really saving $1,000. Here's the thing that's frustrating. Are you gonna pay an extra $6,000 for extra battery life and the autopilot features, Matt? If you were to purchase it?
Well, actually, good question because I actually was pricing it out with those things. So for me, the Tesla has a few things that really attract me to it. The cheap person in me says, I don't want to pay for gas anymore, especially with how ridiculously overpriced it is considering the price of oil.
How much are
And
you paying for it a liter there?
we are currently at, I think, $1.17, and Edmonton's one of the cheapest places in Canada. So
Oh, really?
$1.17 a liter, and we have quite a bit of tax on there. So we have a carbon levy that's recently come and hit us here in Alberta, and there's all the taxes as well. So we're paying a lot of money per liter, considering where the price of oil a barrel is. And our electricity is super cheap, Dan. Like, I
Right.
think I'm paying 5.29 cents per what is it, a gigawatt hour or a kilowatt hour?
Kilowatt hour.
Yeah,
Hashtag brag.
yeah, 6.5 cents. I just signed up for a contract. So
Nice.
it's pretty cheap here. So that has me interested, but also, Dan, it's the technology in these cars. It's the autopilot that really draws me to it. You know how I'm addicted to technology. I
Making
mean,
the
that's
Y
why we have this.
chromosome go crazy.
I
Yeah.
know. My Y chromosome is like, yeah. The little boy in me is like, this is the best remote control car. I can summon it when I'm at Walmart. I could be in the lineup and it will be waiting for me. I mean,
Oh man. And you would almost be kicking yourself, right? Because it's the same car. I mean, it's not like it's a different car. You just paid $6,000 less for it and they disabled a bunch of stuff on it,
that's
right? It's the
exactly.
same car. And you're not going to hack it like you'd hack a computer. Like guaranteed, if Apple released a computer that was the same computer but had a ton of extra cool stuff, I'd find a hack online. But you're not going to hack your car because
Well,
then what
and
if it
here's the reason.
crashes?
People have asked me about that too. Like, would you hack your car?
No.
Danger, Will Robertson. Danger.
Yeah.
And also on top of that, Tesla's constantly putting out updates. And if you hack your car, you're removing yourself from those updates. And those updates make your car safer, faster, smarter. And I mean, they've increased battery life so much, which would save you a lot of money in your pocketbook just by maximizing the way
Right.
the car drives and the cells work. And
It probably would save you money over time. Here's one of the most frustrating things, though. Did you know that the in seat heaters are actually disabled unless you get the $6,000 Model Extra?
oh,
So you
yeah,
can't even heat your seats.
it's
I
all
mean,
done. It's
they're
all done.
bare minimum. It's the bare
Yeah.
minimum.
And the reason why is it's still cheaper for Tesla because it's going through the assembly line. So your battery is the exact same battery as the more expensive one. They just disable it. And actually some people, I've read some things online, they said that will actually make your battery last longer because with your lithium ion batteries, you don't want to charge it all the way up to 100% unless you're going to do a long drive. You want to keep it hovering somewhere between 50 and 70%, and that just extends the life of your battery. So they're saying if you're going to get a Tesla that's already software locked down for a smaller percentage, say 70%, you never have to worry about overcharging it because you can't.
Right.
Because it's locked down. So they're saying that's actually kind of a good thing. Another thing that I like about this is the original $35,000 model wasn't going to come with all the extras. It wasn't going to get that big giant roof made out of glass.
Now it does.
It does. It was going to get a cheap cloth interior. Now it doesn't. It was, so the interior was supposed to be cheaper. It's not going to. Now, you still have to pay for those things other than the interior, but the interior is kind of a free upgrade.
Well, I have some crazy things to tell you about what their plans are.
Yeah.
So, uh, get this. So they said they're going to start leasing the Model 3, which is cool because a lot of people can't afford $40,000, but maybe they could afford a $500 payment. I don't know how much it's going to be, but I'm guessing probably around 500-600, right? So let's say you're paying that every month. Here's the negative thing. They said after you're done the lease, you can't buy it out. Like right now, if you lease a car, which actually is a really dumb idea, never do that. But if you lease a car at the end, you can buy it outright. Here's what they're going to do. They have plans to take all of the leased cars that are done and expired, and they're going to actually make a driverless taxi fleet with it. So they're working on the technology to compete against Uber right now. And so it sounds to me like once these cars have been out a year or two and people's leases are broken, they're going to have a bunch of older cars. And instead of reselling them on the market as used cars, they're going to use this as a Uber competitor.
I think that's great. Here's my thoughts. I don't think it's going to be possible. I don't think the current technology they have on autonomous driving is capable of that. Now, I'm sure Elon Musk will disagree with me, or else they wouldn't have made the announcement. But they probably have to refurbish the cars somehow. So if you lease it now, I think with the current technology that they're building into these Model 3s, I don't think it's capable of full autonomous driving. I just don't think it is. But in the future, say maybe when your lease is up in 3 to 5 years, perhaps they'll just put a few more cameras, software updates, and away you go.
Yeah, it's cool. Well, it's been fun chatting with you, Matt.
Yeah.
We will hit you up next week. But before we go, remember if you like our stuff, please go on to iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts and give us a 5-star rating and a great comment. We love hearing your reviews. And if you're on YouTube, chat with us. We'll get back to you, even if it's an annoying comment.
And Twitter. Chat with us there on Twitter as well.
Yep. All right. And talk at you next week, Matt.
Bye.